Matthew Vaughn's Argylle had all the ingredients for a successful spy comedy: a talented ensemble cast, a promising premise, and the creative vision of a renowned director. However, despite its potential, the film falls kind of all over the place. You might expect a fun subversion of the spy movie with a bonkers plot like Kingsman. That one is fun, goofy, but has a pretty strong plot and well-developed characters. This one is not really grounded in any kind of reality. It has some fun moments, but at the same time, the story is just such a mess and really lacking in having any kind of satisfying cohesion that ties a good story or a good movie together. The film follows Ellie Conway, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, a successful novelist whose popular spy series unexpectedly becomes entangled with real-life espionage. When events from her book start to mirror reality, Ellie finds herself embroiled in a world of spies and intrigue. Guided by the enigmatic Aidan Wilde, played by Sam Rockwell, she uncovers a sinister organization known as the Division, who is hellbent on finding Ellie and learning what book she plans to write next. Now, I've been seeing trailers for this movie, actually one trailer. There's only one trailer for this movie, which is kind of interesting considering movies usually have about 3 different previews they'll show, but this film only had one, which kind of hinted at something almost being wrong with this movie. Did they not want to give away plot elements? Did they realize how complex it was? Did they try to sell it as a spy comedy when it's really kind of a mess in that genre? The answer could be all of these. I personally believe they knew they'd used all of the scenes of some of their biggest selling points: John Cena, Henry Cavill, and Dua Lipa in the trailer. And they knew people would catch on to how little they were in the film. If you saw the marketing for this, you know movies, you know they're only going to be in this for a fleeting moment. I mean, you just know it. Dua Lipa's one scene is shown multiple times in the trailer. And while that is just a minor bit of spoilers, not really spoilers if you've seen the trailer, I'm going to get into spoilers for Argylle, so be warned, there will be spoilers for this movie in the rest of the review. At the heart of Argylle is Bryce Dallas Howard's portrayal of Ellie Conway, a successful novelist who's known for writing these popular spy novels, the Argylle series. And while Henry Cavill is marketed as the star of the movie, even though eagle-eyed movie fans might immediately see he's not the real star, right from the outset, it's clear Bryce Dallas Howard is the star here. And she's a great actress, but there's something broken about her character. It's not the actress's fault. A screenplay cannot support the many twists and turns that her character goes through. And let's get this in a minute, shall we? But there's a lot of problems in this movie. Mainly, it's the story here that flat out doesn't work. It's really overly complex, and it doesn't have to be this way. It's got a lot going on. While the premise holds intrigue, a spy novelist suddenly finding elements of her books coming to life, the execution leaves a lot to be desired from that element. Rather than blending comedy with espionage, the film's tonal shifts feel forced and unnatural, failing to strike that delicate balance that we've seen in successful counterparts in the genre like Kingsman. Now, Kingsman, which I'm comparing to a lot because it was also directed by Matthew Vaughn, was able to have bizarre and funny moments, but it made them feel grounded. You felt that character development. You felt that it earned its violent but equally comedic nature. It worked itself into the heart of the story. This movie is disrupted by not only having too many characters, but characters whose arcs simply don't work, they don't function, or simply don't feel natural. And to explain that, we have to get into the twists. So let's do that, shall we? Early on, or about halfway through the movie, we get to learn the truth about Ellie Conway, but early we find out that Ellie Conway is just a simple author. She's a cat lover, she writes her books, lives relatively quiet, she keeps to herself, she keeps in touch with her mother, played by Catherine O'Hara, who's only in this movie for a few scenes early on, and after that, we find that Ellie's being pursued by spies. That's where the plot picks up, that's where things get haywire, this is where the movie starts to pick up steam, it starts to become the genre movie we've been waiting for. That's also where the film goes off the rails. We see that Ellie's been writing about this character Argylle, and that's the Henry Cavill character. He's this imaginary spy. Henry Cavill's in this movie to live that fan fiction people have always said when they fan cast him, oh, Henry Cavill should be James Bond. We get that here, even if it's just for some fleeting moments. He's more like the Elvis character in True Romance, where Christian Slater talks to himself in the mirror and pictures Elvis. He's not really in this as a character, more as he is as a figment of Ellie's imagination. And the twist comes into play. We find out that the spies are after Ellie because she is the Argylle character from her books. Now that's a pretty convoluted twist. So apparently Ellie was a spy at one point, a really good one, but she fell into a coma. When she woke up, she kind of forgot her life as a spy. She made a successful living as a novelist, writing about her subconscious memories, which in turn are based on events she actually experienced. Oh boy. And there's a lot the movie could have done to make this work, but instead it really just doesn't translate, and we're stuck trying to picture how the lovable Bryce Dallas Howard suddenly turns into Jason Bourne, where she's a killing machine all of a sudden. This is where the movie could have bended the story to its will and really made itself better. Could have leaned into its bizarre premise more. See, Henry Cavill's billed as the lead in this movie, but going in, you kind of know he's not going to be in it much. The movie should have really embraced this twist. Perhaps Henry Cavill actually was a real spy. I thought going into this movie, the twist would be that the cat, Bryce Dallas Howard's cat was actually Henry Cavill or something to that extent. To be honest, that would have been a more interesting twist than what we actually got. Maybe he was just in hiding for most of the movie. I don't know. But the fact that he's just a character in the book, which is supposed to be code for, people write what they see themselves as, it's just such a cocktease for a movie that's about a spy. They could have done something else with that. And I'm not saying it doesn't work that Bryce Dallas Howard is the main character or that she's a spy. It just could have added in more elements as opposed to what it gives you at face value, and it just would have been better. Only this movie has brief scenes of real spy action. The fact that he only appears in dream sequences or pages of the character's book is disappointing, and it's not because, Henry Cavill should have been in this movie more. It doesn't matter if it's him or another actor. It's just that the insertion of this leading spy character really leaves you wanting more of that side of the story. And the stuff with Bryce Dallas Howard doesn't do that as well because it's just hard to see her as a spy in the brief scenes where she's clearly trying to play that role. And that twist where they reveal that Bryce Dallas Howard's really a spy named Argylle, it just doesn't work. It's almost funny because of how hard to believe it is. It's almost like a parody that just doesn't work, and they're, meant to be taking this seriously. There's lots of other twists that don't work too, such as when we learn that the mother character, played by Catherine O'Hara, isn't actually the mother of Bryce Dallas Howard, but a scientist who brainwashed her. And then there's this side character played by Bryan Cranston, who only appears in a couple of other scenes as some big bad guy, a bland character who heads the division in some office somewhere, where, by the way, Bryan Cranston clearly shot his scenes on his own, which also kind of takes you out of it. He's actually supposed to be her father, but he's not really her father. He's posing as her dad to lure her back into the world of espionage. And to be fair, this could be an interesting twist, but it's how it's played out and how the twist is dealt to us that, simply put, the twist does not work. Why? Because we do not get enough scenes of Catherine O'Hara as the mother or Bryan Cranston early on. They're only in it for a few minutes. And then Bryan Cranston, who's her father figure, who's really just trying to turn her back into a killing machine, it doesn't work either because it only functions because he's Bryan Cranston, a famous actor. And I feel as if it were anyone else, we'd just be going, who cares? I saw this with a friend who said to me, what's Walter White doing here? The twist just doesn't really play that well. It doesn't feel natural. Had we gotten more scenes of Catherine O'Hara, more motherly scenes with her and her daughter, maybe it would have worked. Maybe it would have felt more natural. And the action scenes, which should be at the heart of this movie, are also deeply flawed. It's a really jam-packed movie. There's a lot of dull scenes of explaining things, of having Sam Rockwell doing what he does very best, being charming, dancing weirdly. He's cast in this pretty well, to be fair, but all he pretty much is explain to Ellie what's going on, the situation she's gotten herself into. Once they start globetrotting and doing all the spy stuff that would have done well in a movie like Kingsman, the movie goes on and starts to draw on. It's just not that interesting to watch. Take Kingsman for example. There's a lot of cool set pieces, and it's how the characters fit into that world that make it work. There's the development of Eggsy and Harry, from Eggsy going a street smart shit to being a spy, to learning the rules of spy. Manners make it the man. There's Eggsy and Harry learning to bond. This whole movie is him and Harry train together. You watch him grow. And then it's like you get to see that development of that character. It just works. In this movie, it's just like flipping a light switch and boom, Ellie's a spy. It just doesn't feel right. Not to mention the action sequences and characters in Kingsman have such a delightful weirdness to them. In Kingsman, you have Sofia Boutella's Gazelle, who's this creepy henchman with legs made of metal who can kill you with one slice. You have a villain who has a lisp and is afraid of blood, and even every scene with him is just hilarious. And there's even this little McDonald's joke where they're eating McDonald's, and it's even some advertising in there, but it works because of just how ironic it is with this villain eating fast food. You have these bizarre training sequences where they had to escape a room that's filling with water, an insanely choreographed church fight that still to this day is almost unmatched in the genre of action and comedy. You have a sequence where all the world leaders and influential heads of state from around the world get their heads blown up set to classical music, while the lead character gets to bed a princess as a reward. It's just so bonkers. And it works. Meanwhile, in this movie, there's 2 sequences crammed in really tight at the end of the film that just feel like the director tried to add them in, or he had to add in something because the movie has so little memorable action to begin with. And let's give credit where creative credit's due, but it just has no build-up. For instance, when Ellie finds herself fighting these random bad guys on a ship, she's skating on oil. Why? Because they imply in her past life she was an ice skater, so now she skates and uses her skates to take out the bad guys. It's a creative idea, but it just doesn't work, because there's only like one scene of them explaining how Ellie used to skate in her past life. So this big cathartic ending set to music where she takes out these faceless random goons and her skates just feels kind of tacked on. Then the final standoff takes place on a boat and literally just consists of 3 characters on a ship trying to stop a file from being uploaded, and it's clearly shot on a soundstage somewhere. Not to mention there's no real threats in this final battle and no stakes. And they keep showing Samuel L. Jackson's character is supposed to be the good guy as he's watching a basketball game somewhere in some random country house by himself, somehow praying that this file is not uploaded. And then the celebration for this when they don't upload the file is just so anticlimactic. It's disappointing. Samuel L. Jackson just throws his hands up in the air and cheers. He's alone and cheering when the good guys win. It just is such a disappointment for the audience. Compare that to Kingsman, where Eggsy's family, his mom and sister, the rest of the world are all in danger and get rescued. There's this emotional core to that film that we feel, that the audience feels. You know, Argylle does not have that. There's no real connection when Argylle ends. It isn't really like there's anything worth celebrating. It just feels like an episode of some formulaic TV show that happened to cost $200 million. Not that there are real stakes at all. I really wish they used these quirky elements more. I wish the novel aspect had more of a twist to them. Maybe there's something with the books that the bad guys are trying to get. Maybe there's a secret code in the books. The fact that it's just something she wrote based on her memories is kind of disappointing. It doesn't really do anything. Also, the aspect with the cat. The cat was used a lot in the marketing, and I was kind of disappointed that there was no real twist with the cat or no MacGuffin with the cat. It was kind of disappointing to me. I should have mentioned this movie was going to be an Apple original film. It was not meant to be released theatrically, and it's weird because it kind of feels like that. Not that a direct-to-TV movie should have that terrible plot. No movie should, but there's this glossy digital look to it that feels like an Apple film, not a movie to be released in IMAX theaters on a nearly dead February weekend. And it shows in the final result. I wanted to like Argylle. I really did want to enjoy it. I love a good spy film, and we feel like we don't get enough of them, but this movie was simply not it. So let me know what you guys think, if you liked Argylle, if you didn't like it, or you didn't even see it. But honestly, I think compared to Matthew Vaughn's other works, including Kingsman and Kingsman The Golden Circle, which was goofy, but honestly much better than this, I thought this was a letdown.